Hello, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with Craig. It is, it's Thursday morning. Things are cooling off here a bit in Sacramento, as I'm sure they are throughout the rest of the state and the country. Today, we're going to talk about another change, not just a change in weather, but a change in ideology, in particular when it comes to the Second Amendment. Now, many of you are familiar with NPR, National Public Radio. It is those of you who are left-leaning probably think of NPR as a, how shall we say, non-biased media source that looks at community and culture and politics. Those of us in the real world recognize it for what it is. It is, although well-meaning, but it is basically left-wing media just like all the rest. The only difference is this media is paid for with taxpayer dollars. So, needless to say that when the CEO actually had a chance to take a look at, or the former CEO had a chance to take a look at his life and his perspective and really kind of get outside of what he calls his liberal bubble that he believes the media has placed themselves in, he had a chance to really experience some significantly different things. Specifically, what he talked about was he said, you know, he actually wanted, well, let me clarify. He wound up writing a book. The book is called Republican Like Me, How I Left the Liberal Bubble and Learned to Love the Right. Now, this is from Stern, who, by the way, is a Democrat. And what he realized was, once again, he had cordoned himself off, as many in the media do, in this liberal bubble. I know a lot of you out there are saying, liberal bubble. Once again, I'm not talking to most of my listeners, maybe for those of you on the left who are, you know, kind of listening, trying to get some inside intel from the right-wing gun guys. Anyway, but you think, well, the media is not liberal. Well, of course it is. And here's someone who ran one of the largest news agencies or media agencies, funded the only one largely funded by taxpayer dollars, and even he admits that, well, hey, they're biased. And much of their reporting is biased. And so one of the areas in which he was asked about had to do with his position on guns or on the Second Amendment. And he had something actually very interesting to say. I will let you hear it now, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Fundamental challenge. They win off the extremes. The media wins off the extremes, and that's what the challenge we have right now.
Over the course of this reporting trip, Ken, did you change your views on anything? I was looking through the chapter on guns, where you seem to concede that there's nothing. There's the guns used in Aurora and Las Vegas. Now we can add in Orlando were lawfully obtained. They passed background checks. They were legal weapons. And that's the argument we often hear when we have progressives say, you've got to do something. We've got to do something. There have to be more laws. Well, what exactly is the law? Did you change your views on guns?
So I started off, knowing and believing, we all have a confirmation bias. We all take our views and signals from others. And I started off, how could I be right about everything? I mean, that was sort of an opening gambit that I had. I was going to go out and say, I can't be that right, and everyone else can't be that wrong. I did change my views on guns. And it starts with a notion which I wouldn't have thought of before, which is gun homicides, death by guns in this country has gone down by half over the last 25 years. It's the most extraordinary trend in sort of modern American criminal history. At the same time, the number of guns have gone up. Those two things aren't correlated, but it's clear that we know how to drive down gun murders without gun control. And the question is, why are we talking about gun control when there are other things that we've been doing for 25 years that actually have reduced murders in this country by an extraordinary amount? I mean, as you say, Willie, most of the gun control measures, I'm still fine with them, really aren't something that we're going to have a major effect. But we know other things like the pulling levers program in Boston, actually can reduce gun homicides by a lot.
The book is Republican Like Me, How I Left the Liberal Bubble and Learned to Love the Right.
So, all right, so first of all, let's not forget, now he didn't totally reverse himself on gun control. He just said he's fine with, probably because he's chosen not to own a firearm. So it doesn't affect him, which is pretty much where most of the gun grabbers are. Their attitude is, well, hey, it doesn't affect me because I don't choose to own a gun. Or it doesn't affect me because I own one handgun that's sitting in my closet up on a shelf and I haven't taken it out in a dozen years. They're not people who believe in the fundamental right to self-defense or at least they don't believe in it until they have to actually exercise it and are not prepared to do so. But now, all of that having been said, what he recognized was something very significant, was that these laws don't make a difference, and that the mere existence of more firearms does not, in fact, make the country a more dangerous place. He noted that the number of gun deaths, in particular the number of gun homicides, have gone down significantly over the last 20 to 25 years. But at the same time, the number of firearms owned has gone up significantly. So you can't say that more guns equals more death if more guns has in fact equaled less death or fewer gun homicides. Now, one thing that you can point to, and I think we have an example right here in California, is more criminals equals more crime equals more violence and more gun deaths. How do we know that? Because we've seen it happen here in California as we've passed Proposition 47, AB 109, Proposition 57, as we're watching time and time again as they are releasing criminals from jail in order to, alleviate overcrowding in prison. But what they're doing at the same time is they're making it more and more a crime for you to own or possess a firearm, a readily available, accessible, ready-to-use firearm. They're trying to make that a crime, or at least they're trying to make it so difficult, so complicated, and so expensive that the only way in which for you to exercise your right is to potentially become a criminal or to violate the law. That was his perspective. At least that's my perspective. I believe that that's the case, and I believe that's what's happening here in California. We've seen crime go up. We've seen violent crime go up. It's all, quite frankly, the result of, if you're a criminal, you're a victim. And if you're a potential victim and you want to defend yourself, that, in fact, makes you a criminal. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, share these videos. Let your friends know what's going down. This is the place to find out what's going on from coast to coast when it comes to gun rights, especially when it comes to the fight for civil rights. Like I say, civil rights, got to use them. You're going to lose them. See you later.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.